Welcome to the Gilmore Gals podcast.
We are obviously amateurs, so please bear with us through the first few episodes as we were finding our footing.
After that, we got proper mics and the sound quality improved drastically. Thanks for listening.
Copper boom! Hello, dragonflies! Welcome to the Gilmore Gals podcast, where we take a deep dive into each episode of the beloved show.
We're your hosts, Sarah
and Ani.
We're huge Gilmore Girls fans, and we're besties. In this podcast, we talk about everything Gilmore, from the pop culture references to the tiniest minutia only a true Gilmore nerd would care about.
Copper boom!
Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Ani.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to hop into this episode. Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Today we are doing Season 1, Episode 3, Kill Me Now. It's written by Joanne Waters and directed by Adam Nimoy.
This third episode of Gilmore Girls aired on October 19th, 2000. Rory is required to play a sport at Chilton, and she's struggling to decide which to choose. Emily suggests golf so she can join her grandfather at the club. Lorelai instinctively resists, but eventually agrees. While reluctant to teach her golf at first, Richard and Rory end up bonding and having a pleasant time together. A fact which leaves Lorelai feeling conflicted.
Meanwhile, Lorelai is busy planning a big wedding at the inn. The co-brides are twin sisters who are very particular and difficult to please. And get this, they're marrying twin brothers. This episode also features a slightly absurd fight between Lorelai and Rory about who has bigger boobs. Shall we jump into the fast fact?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So our first fast fact for this episode is that Edward Herrmann, who plays Richard Gilmore, actually did develop a very warm, nurturing, and protective relationship with Alexis Bledel in real life. Apparently, it's considered one of the finest traditions of the stage for an older player in a troupe to take a younger player under their wing. And, he came from a stage background. Alexis was 18 years old when the show started. She was living alone in Los Angeles. She was very far from her family, which was all in Houston. And she was kind of thrown into the deep end of this crazy hectic schedule with so much riding on her shoulders. And so she was very overwhelmed, understandably. And so Edward Herrmann, he would defend her and tell production that she was exhausted and that they were burning her out. So he took care of her. And so the relationship we see between the two characters of Richard and Rory over the course of the series is actually one of genuine fondness.
That's so sweet.
Oh, right?
Yeah. As we mentioned, this episode is directed by Adam Nimoy. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he is the son of Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock in the original Star Trek.
Dun, dun, dun.
And lastly, as we'll see later on in the episode, Luke makes a comment on the environmental impact of golf courses. And so, Ani, I had to do a deep dive on this.
Of course you did.
Being the environmentalist that I am. So first of all, golf courses require a lot of land. This means that large areas must be cleared for the golf course, which causes potential habitat destruction. And to keep the green, golf courses rely on heavy use of water consumption. In places like Scotland, where the game was actually invented, this isn't as big of a problem because they get a lot of rain. But golf courses in states like Arizona, Utah, and California are draining as much as 9 million gallons of water a day from areas that don't have a lot of extra water lying around. And additionally, they use many pesticides, which are problematic to begin with, and those can also run off into water supplies. Now, golf course proponents argue that golf courses actually help nature by creating wildlife sanctuaries, such as the Audubon Society's Monarchs in the Rough program, which provides habitats for the endangered pollinators in areas of the golf course not used for play. Thanks to greenmatters.com for the info.
I remember we went for our baby moon to, I think it was, what is that desert area that Frank Sinatra used to love? Thank you. I couldn't think of it. Palm Springs. So we went to Palm Springs and we found this really cheap little, resort hotel thing. And we were like, oh, yay, let's have a baby moon. And we get there and the entire time, before this, I had never thought about it, but the entire time I just kept looking around and everything was so green and lush. And I just kept saying to Ryan, we're in the middle of a desert. Do you know how much water this must be consuming? And then you just shared 9 million gallons of water a day. A
Mhm.
day, because it was a golf course there as well, in addition to all the other lush property. I just felt so bad. I'm like, this is not okay, especially considering like California is running out of potable water, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
oh, and they just keep building new ones. I'm like, how many golf courses do you really need?
I know. And then even just like the land, the clearing of the land, you know, is a lot because that, like I said, it's got habitat destruction. And then of course those are all big giant heavy machinery that they use, which, you know, puts a lot of CO2 and stuff into the atmosphere as well. So yeah.
Hey, good times. We're starting on a light note today.
Yes. All right.
Okay,
Well,
should we start with the recap?
okay, so episode 3 opens with a Friday night dinner, and it's a big one with a lot to unpack. So hang on, because this is going to take a few minutes.
Get ready. All right, here we go. First off, we're going to start with a location breakdown. The establishing shot of the exterior of the Gilmore Mansion is actually a private residence in Pasadena, California, and afterward they built the entire house on a Warner Brothers soundstage. The actual house itself in Pasadena is currently off the market. It was built in 1925, and its value is currently estimated at nearly $7 million.
Wow,
I know.
that's actually a bargain.
In Pasadena?
All right. Next up, we get our first hint at the revolving door of maids/cooks that we will see in the Gilmore household. First, we have Mira, although her name is actually Sarah, but Emily can't seem to keep her name straight because, after all, she's only the help. And Mira is technically the cook, not their maid. But going forward, I think that they're all maids, but I think they also do the cooking as well. And then they are also going through a lengthy list of recently departed maids and cooks, including Heidi, Trina, Sophia, and Anton. Now, the reason I mention all of these other names is that Richard remarks that he liked Sophia, but then he realizes it was actually Anton that he liked, to which Lorelai questions how he couldn't tell the difference.
He's like, I'm a very busy man. And then Lorelai's like, but one is a woman and one is a man.
Yeah, like, how can you not know? You really have to be indifferent to not notice that.
I think maybe it's just like rich people are like in their own little worlds and like they just don't notice the help. I think that's probably what it is.
I guess. We also get our first mention of Lorelai the First. However, they speak of her in the past tense, but we will actually see her later on this season.
Richard says that his mom was a world-famous hostess of masquerade balls, which, I'm sorry, that does not fit at all the personality of the woman who we come to know as Lorelai the First. Right? Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
That seems insane to me. I think she would see a masquerade as something frivolous.
Yeah, they must not have like really had an idea for her yet. You know, they were trying to figure out what that character was going to be.
I think you're right.
In this brief exchange regarding Lorelai the First, we also get a hint that Emily is less than fond of Richard's mother, something that will come up multiple times throughout the series.
In hilarious ways.
In hilarious ways. It's so nice to see Emily squirming for once.
I know.
We also find out that Rory needs to find a sport for school. Kill me, I would die.
I know, right?
This gives us our Friday night dinner quote of the week.
I told her she should go out for the debating team.
That's not a sport.
It is the way the Gilmores play.
Emily suggests that Richard take Rory to the club to teach her golf, and we can see that Lorelai does not love this idea.
Yeah, and Emily says she can use Lorelai's old golf clubs because they're upstairs gathering dust along with the rest of her potential.
Ooh.
Isn't that awful?
That is.
She is awful. She always has to throw in these little snide comments. It's just
I know.
I don't even know what I
to her face and not behind her back.
I suppose that's a good thing. A redeeming quality. Okay, well then Lorelai, she's like, okay, this is crazy. And she takes Emily aside to the other room to discuss the golf thing privately.
And Lorelai accuses her of manipulating the situation, forcing Rory and Richard into something that neither of them really wants to do. And Emily, in turn, accuses Lorelai of being afraid that Rory will actually enjoy herself at the club without Lorelai. And then that would mean that Emily wins.
So Lorelai here says, that's crazy, and pronounces her Z really weird, just like she does in the word amazing. Did you catch it?
No, I don't hear it. I'm gonna keep listening, but I don't hear it.
People are going to think I'm a crazy person. But she says crazy, and she says it twice in this scene. All right. Well, anyway, through some very clever passive aggressive Jedi mind tricks, Emily makes the point that simply assuming Rory won't have a good time is an example of Lorelai being controlling, something of which Lorelai is always accusing Emily.
So finally, Lorelai just gives up, says, "You win," and we get gloating Emily. She will make many more cameos from here on out, including this entire episode.
Gloating Emily. I love that. Her face is so good when she does that. She's like, like I told you so type face. Oh,
she has such a good gloating face.
Oh man, I really love her. She's great.
She is. And then, as the girls are leaving Friday night dinner, Rory asks Lorelai if she would join her and Richard on Saturday at the club.
And Lorelai responds with a lengthy list of things she'd rather do than that particular activity, including
stick something sharp in her ear,
slide down a banister of razor blades and land in a pool of alcohol,
eat her own hand,
get her face surgically altered to look like that lunatic rich lady with the lion head.
Is that a real person?
It is.
I'll have to look.
You should look her up. Yeah,
I will.
Okay.
Okay. And then also, she says she would rather cut off her head and use it as a punch bowl. Which of those is your favorite? You have
a favorite? Say the lunatic rich lady. I think that's pretty funny. The lion head.
I like the sliding down a banister of razor blades and landing in a pool of alcohol. Next, we see Lorelai giving two young, identical twin ladies and their mom a tour of the Independence Inn grounds.
So we have here another location breakdown. The Independence Inn is actually a private residence located in Thousand Oaks, California, which is kind of near my old hood, near Santa Barbara. The property is about 60 acres, which is ginormous, and the house itself is about 6,700 square feet. Zillow estimates the value of the property at nearly $4.7 million. And if you look at the pictures on Zillow, which I encourage you to do, I think you can see the hill there where Rory kisses Jess for the first time.
Aww.
Do you remember the end of season 2? This is spoiler alert. I think everyone knows, though. I think they do it right there on that hill. But I want you to notice you get 60 freaking acres for $4.7 million versus just a house for $7 million in Pasadena.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's crazy, right? And here I thought Thousand Oaks was like a fancy area too, but apparently
not as bad as Pasadena, apparently. It turns out the co-bridezillas are twin sisters who are getting married in the same wedding, and they're marrying twin brothers.
Okay, my reaction to that is gross, though I'm not entirely sure why.
I had the same reaction, and I think that Suki sums it up best for us later on in the episode when she invents that crazy what if scenario involving confusion over who is actually who, like on the wedding night, like walking into the wrong hotel room and potentially sleeping with the wrong twin.
So you, for the rest of your life, you would have to confirm with the person you're about to sleep with, hey, you are my wife, right?
Oh, it's so weird.
It's just creepy. I don't know why. The brides are fighting over what colors they want for the wedding. And that reminded me of, do you remember that movie, The Wedding Planner?
Mm-hmm.
That J-Lo movie? Okay, so I must have seen that movie like 50 times. I don't know why, but I loved it so much. I found it so charming. And J-Lo, her character says to the bride she's working with, she chose teal as her wedding color, right? And then she says to somebody, she goes, teal, the color of gangrene, which is hilarious to me because my wedding colors were teal and mint and everything else was stark white and it was gorgeous.
And I also love teal, and my wedding colors were a super light teal and a lavender.
Yeah,
the two of us,
exactly.
We love our teals.
We love our teals, and I don't think there's anything gangrene-esque about it. Thank you very much.
No, I don't think so either.
Your wedding was gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Yours was too from the pictures. Unfortunately, we didn't know each other when Ani got married, but yours were also very, very, very beautiful weddings. Back in the... That's okay. Back at the inn's front desk, Lorelai and Michelle see the grooms walk in, and they're both shocked and weirded out. Lorelai says it's like a really snooty Doublemint commercial. And we wonder if any of the youngins out there even have any idea what that means. I actually found an ad on the YouTube, and we'll share it on our social media sites. So be sure to check that out. It even has Tia and Tamara Mowry from Sister Sister in it.
They made a Doublemint commercial?
They did. They were in a Doublemint commercial.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, for the youngins, Doublemint is gum. It's a brand of gum. Does it still exist?
I was just going to ask you that. I think it's still around.
You know what? I miss the jingle days. Back then, every brand had a jingle, and I knew them all because I watched way too much television. And
Same
I
here.
loved that. I bet you I could sing the Doublemint song right now.
I was just thinking, I was kind of like going through some of it in my head.
Well, now the only song that can come up right now in my head is Mentos.
Mhm. The fresh sugar.
And then also Big Red. Give your breath long-lasting freshness with Big Red. You remember that one?
Yeah.
But I can't think of the Doublemint one, so now I have to go watch our socials when you post that.
You know, I actually had a friend whose father wrote jingles.
Oh, shut up. I just thought that would be the best job.
I know. I don't know like of any like specifically that he did, but when I heard that, I was like in awe. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Hey, do you remember that movie? We're just going way off topic today. But that movie, Karina?
Yes.
Do you
Yeah.
remember? He was a jingle writer, the dad.
Oh yeah.
It's apropos of nothing. I'm just remembered that anyway. I think it's good if we go off a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I think so too.
'cause otherwise,
I mean, a lot of these people know the show so well, you know, like they like to hear some of the other things, I think, too. So,
well, the grooms, when the grooms come in, they shout out schmoopies when they see their girls, which is something that Ryan and I call each other, schmoopy. And I don't know if I got it from this episode or not, but it's what we've always called each other, schmoopy.
it's so cute. You probably did because you'd seen this, you know, how many times before then. So, that's
It was
funny.
like subconscious.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Well, in the next scene, we're back at the Gilmore's house with Richard impatiently awaiting Rory's arrival so that they can head off to the club. We can see that Richard is not at all happy about having to spend the day with Rory at the club.
And apparently, Rory is half an hour late, which, excuse me, is not like her at all. She's usually like the super punctual one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Emily looks at Richard and she says to him, she goes, "Is that what you're wearing?" And that just cracks me up because okay, first of all, it's not the only time she says that in the series. And yes, obviously it's what I'm wearing because, you know, I'm wearing it. And I know for a fact she says at least once more to Lorelai, but I wonder if any of our listeners can think of any other time. So let us know, okay?
Rory arrives, and Emily puts a ridiculous, brightly colored beret on her head and tells her that now she looks just like Tiger Woods.
Which a quick Google image search, which of course I did, confirms that Tiger Woods has never worn a beret a day in his life. So I don't know what the heck she's talking about.
I know, I was like, okay. Rory's a good sport about it, though, and she just says, wow, that's some hat. The hat is ridiculous, but I personally think that she looks adorable in it. And I'm also wondering what she means by those short pant things when she was asking if what she was wearing was okay. Was she talking about capris?
Well, I don't know if you know this. The official olden times attire for golf involved like short pants. You remember that episode of I Love Lucy where they go golfing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm almost 100% sure she's wearing short pants. And it's like the, I don't know if it was ever an official uniform, but it's just what people wore. And now, of course, I'm on the Google machine. I'm looking at golf attire just to see. So nowadays, obviously, it's more like skirts and regular pants. But yeah. I'm curious. I'm going to have to do this when we're not recording. But like, maybe we can find some pictures of like olden times golf outfits and post those on our socials.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Next up, we see Richard and Rory walking around the golf course.
We have another location breakdown here. The golf course is actually Brookfield Farms, again in Thousand Oaks. And the shot of them outside the locker rooms is Warner Brothers commissary dining room.
I actually really liked the golf course scenes. You can see at the beginning, they're very stiff and awkward with each other. But as the day progresses, you see that the walls begin to come down a little and they really start to enjoy each other's company, which, as we'll see, Lorelai is not too sure about.
And then at one point, Richard asks Rory, what do you know about golf? And she responds that it's a good walk spoiled, which I would have to agree.
Yeah. And Richard doesn't quite seem to know what to say to that, but he proceeds to calmly teach Rory the proper grip and swing without losing his patience.
I thought he was very kind with her.
I did too.
So have you ever golfed?
Oh no. No,
never?
I've done mini golf a couple of times,
That's fun though.
but that's about it. How about you?
Well, yeah, my dad used to play. So when I was a kid, he would take me he took me maybe like twice, but I found it so incredibly boring that, but sometimes he would take me to the driving range, and I actually did find that more fun, just hitting the balls. Because when I was a kid, I was really lazy and I didn't want to walk all that distance. We head back to the Independence Inn, where Jackson presents Suki, who has a Band-Aid, with blueberries. But she wanted strawberries to make strawberry shortcake for 200 people, presumably for the wedding. And Jackson says he was not happy with the quality of the strawberries, which is why he substituted the strawberries with blueberries.
I think that goes to show his character and that he wasn't comfortable selling something subpar, which I really commend him for that. And Jackson then suggests that she try making a blueberry shortcake. And when Suki responds, "There's no such thing," Jackson comes back with one of my favorite quotes of this episode. "Hey, the world was flat until someone took a boat trip."
I love that.
I liked it. Lorelai then walks into the kitchen, going on about how Rory has been forced to spend the day at the club with Richard, and asks Suki to tell her something happy, to which Suki, on the verge of tears, replies, "I can't make the strawberry shortcake."
And Lorelai goes, "Wow, you suck at this game." I love their relationship. They're so cute.
I do too. It reminds me of two people. I don't know who.
The two of them remind you of someone?
Yeah.
Ooh. Next, we see Lorelai, Suki, and Michelle kind of ogling the two soon-to-be married couples. They're just marveling over them. And Michelle says, "If you ask me, this union belongs in a public access station. It's against the laws of nature and just the short of completely obscene."
And again, Michelle just tells it exactly like it is.
Exactly. Must be a French thing.
Must be. We learn that Michelle has put a post-it note on one of the grooms to tell them apart. Now, I cannot stand these twins or their mother. They're such spoiled brats, and she's so uppity and acts like she just absolutely hates her children, even going as far as saying that labor was the highlight of being their mother.
God.
And I'm like, guess what, lady? You can blame your husband all you want for spoiling them, but, they also had to have gotten some of that behavior from you too, lady.
Oh my gosh. One of my favorite things in, like, when they're having an argument about super salad, I like how one of them goes, "Jessica." She says her sister's name. Like, it's such a Valley Girl thing to do.
Back at the club, Richard and Rory have finished up their round of golf. Rory asks Richard what he does, and we find out that he's the executive vice president in charge of the international division at a large insurance company called Gurman Driscoll. We never hear this name mentioned again.
I was going to say, yeah, we never hear this name again. And I wonder, do you recall any other names being mentioned for his company?
I don't remember. I just remember they mentioned a few times that he was in insurance, but I don't remember a specific company unless when he gets fired, do they mention it?
I don't think so. I know when he starts his own company, they call that the Gilmore Group, even though it's just him. But yeah, I don't think they ever mentioned Gurman Driscoll again. So Rory starts talking about how much she wants to travel, and this is her first mention of both visiting Fez and the post-graduation European backpacking trip that she and her mom have planned.
I love these little hints at events in future seasons. It shows that the Palladinos had a real plan for the series as a whole. Not every show is like that.
Absolutely. I think nowadays, because seasons have become shorter and they're streaming, I think there is more of an arc for every season and every series. But back in the day, when there were like 22, 23 episodes per season, how could you possibly, I don't know how they did it, how they foresaw all those things, So I read some things about the Palladinos that indicate that that's just kind of how they work. Like, for example, this Maisel show that just ended. Oh, have you watched it yet? The series
we
finale?
haven't watched the last season at all yet.
Oh, okay. All the episodes are up, y'all. So
okay,
you got us. Oh my gosh, it's so good. So the Palladinos knew from the beginning what the fate of Midge and Joel was going to be. like from the very beginning. And I think that's like world-class storytelling.
Yeah. I would just like to mention the woman in the golf cart who Richard describes as the most odious woman alive as she passes them. She is so pretentious with that tiny little dog wearing a dress and a bow. Of course, if she had had a cat dressed up like that, I probably would have felt slightly differently.
Yeah, I think you would have. I think you would have been like, oh my God, that's adorable. But who takes the cat to a golf course, right?
Right? They'd be
Yeah,
trying
she
to
was
get the
awful.
ball. It would be a disaster.
So Rory and Richard decide to take a steam in their respective saunas, and Richard takes the opportunity to brag about his granddaughter to the other fellas. Now, before we go on at all, I just want to ask you, have you ever done a sauna?
I think I have, but it's been a very long time. I am always hot and sweaty, and so I don't really get the appeal of making yourself hot and sweaty.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I've done them because I've heard that they're good for you, but by the time you're done, you just want to go take a nap. Like you've got nothing left. I don't really know. I don't know the appeal. I don't really get it.
From what they all have to say about their own grandchildren, Richard starts to appreciate Rory even more because she seems to have her head on straight.
One of the men in the scene is an actor named Charles C. Stevenson Jr., who later goes on to play Reverend Wilder in a season 4 episode called The Reigning Lorelai. And then he also played Charlie, Rory's co-worker, in the Stars Hollow Gazette office in A Year in the Life. And finally, he was also Smitty, the bartender, on the show Will and Grace.
Oh yeah, Smitty! I can't believe I never noticed that before.
Well, he was like 1,000 years old, so I'm sure, he was like a character actor who probably did a million different things.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff too. But I love that actor though. He's just so, I don't know, he's just so cute. Just a cute little old man. We're going back to the inn briefly, just to mention that as everyone is running around doing wedding decorating, we see the guy soon to be known as Kirk delivering swans for the wedding. We can just go ahead and count this as job number 1 for Kirk, swan delivery man.
Now, Michelle and Lorelai argue over who has to deal with either the swans or with Drella, and we find out Michelle was traumatized by a swan attack as a child.
You don't mess around with swans or geese. They are vicious. I've actually had a goose hiss at me before.
Yeah, and Ryan told me he was attacked by geese at a park in Torrance.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, I don't know why it's kind of sad. I mean, both for the poor animals who are probably scared, but also the image of Ryan being chased down the street by a goose it's pretty funny.
It is.
Sorry, Ryan.
There is something kind of funny about being chased by, a goose or a swan. Like, I don't know. It's just funny. I don't know why.
Oh, and it reminds me of what's it called later on when Jess gets beaked by a swan.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so next up, Rory is sharing the gossip that she overheard in the sauna with Richard, who is just eating it up.
And it turns out all these crazy rich people are up to nefarious activities, which Richard describes as Peyton Place. So, and I believe Peyton Place is mentioned one other time in the series, so I had to look it up. Apparently, it was the first real American soap opera, and it was from the 60s, and it was based on a movie that was based on a book from the 50s. So in my deep dive that I did on this, according to nostalgiacentral.com, yes, that's a thing, the show was known for being, quote, a romantic and tempestuous drama set in a small New England town called Peyton Place. And it was a community seething with extramarital affairs and dark secrets of every kind.
Ooh.
Oh, totally makes me want to watch it, right?
Heck yeah. Gotta love a good soap. Richard's sauna friends show up and ask to have lunch with them, which gives Richard just another chance to brag about Rory. And you can see in her face that she's really enjoying this display of affection from Richard because she's probably never really gotten that kind of attention and affection from him before.
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet. I think it shows that he actually, at heart is a very tender man, but that he's such a waspy guy that it's hard to show it.
Yeah.
So the next scene, we see Rory at Luke's diner waiting for her mom, and Lorelai comes in and sits down, and she's looking all sorry for Rory, and she offers her some of Suki's chocolate cake to help her feel better after the day she's had with Richard.
She's assuming that Rory must have had a terrible time with her grandfather because we all know Lorelai would have had a terrible time. And so she thinks that now Rory is in need of some dessert-flavored consoling, which is always the answer, in my opinion.
Right? I mean, chocolate, hello.
Hello.
Professor Lupin says, eat this, it'll really help. And he's giving him chocolate. So
Yeah.
clearly. So then Rory tells her she's not hungry because she had a big lunch and that it was, quote, quite good, and that she took a steam.
Lorelai appears surprised by Rory's use of the word quite, as well as by the fact that she took a steam, and remarks that it sounds like Rory really had a good time. We start to see a little tinge of green come over Lorelai.
And when Rory confirms that she had a good time, Lorelai is incredulous, and they go back and forth with, really?
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 Okay, new word now. Have you
Lorelai.
ever done that? Like, I remember, like, in middle school, my friends and I, for some reason, would just say, like, really over and over again. I don't know why. And then it would just sound so weird, you know? Like, it wouldn't sound like the word. I don't know. This was the 90s. We didn't have the internet like that now.
There wasn't anything to do. You know, there's a word for that. They talk about it on Ted Lasso. There's a word for when you say a word over and over again and
Yes.
it loses its meaning.
I remember them talking about that, and I was like, oh my God, but I don't remember what that word is.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm gonna look it up. But anyway, our word was seriously. We do that a lot in high school. Seriously. Oh my God, it's so lame. All right, so Lorelai also seems shocked by the fact that Richard and Rory actually talked, like they seem to like each other.
Part of her thinks that it's great, and she is happy for Rory that Rory is developing a good relationship with her grandfather. But there's also a part of her that's a little hurt because she never had a good relationship with her father. She probably never really had meaningful conversations with him like Rory did today.
Sad. It makes me think of, remember the last episode of A Year in the Life when she calls her mom and she's telling that story about her and her dad? But anyway, okay, so then Miss Patty is coaching the couples on their first dance, and we see for the first time that she is man crazy.
She looks for any excuse to pull one of the grooms in close, to which he complains, again?
Now, personally, I mean, we look at it and it's funny, but I don't think Miss Patty's behavior in general over the series has aged well. Like, for example, if you were to reverse the genders here and it was an older guy teaching the brides how to dance and he was real touchy-feely with them and like pulling them close like that, it would be super gross and inappropriate.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And it's kind of like a double standard in some ways, you know, where it was considered funny to essentially show a woman sexually harassing and or sometimes assaulting men, but to be able to laugh it off.
It's definitely a double standard. And that's, I think, beyond your and my ken to understand what that's about. We're not going to, dive into that here. But like, I was just thinking, there was this episode, maybe season 2, season 3, where Dean walks by Miss Patty and she's just watching all these men doing construction work. And he says to her, "You're getting dangerous to even walk by, Patty." And I was like, at the time I was like, oh, that's funny. But now I look at it and I'm like, reverse it.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't like male gaze on us. It makes us feel uncomfortable. So I don't know. Anyway, we're destroying something that's potentially very funny for people. But
I know. Sorry, folks.
Sorry, we're feminists. What are you going to do?
All right. Well, moving on and away from Miss Patty. Inside the inn, Richard calls Rory on the phone.
Lorelai is clearly thrown by this because, according to her, he has never called the inn, not once. And this just adds to like her growing jealousy of the relationship that Rory and Richard are developing.
And just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, the mother of the bride and Drella begin arguing over music for the wedding, with Drella declaring, "I am not a jukebox." But then when the mother offers her an extra $100, Drella quickly changes her tune. "You've got yourself a jukebox." some good comedic bit there to kind of ease the tension a little bit.
She's so good. She can deliver any line.
I forgot how much she's in this first season, at least in these first few episodes. I'm loving it.
And then, we get her as Miss Celine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is maybe the greatest character ever created ever.
She's fabulous. I can't wait to get there
I
again.
know. Rory and Lorelai are sitting on their porch when Babette comes over asking for oil because her cat is stuck under her house.
I can relate to that. When I was younger, I had a cat and her name was Princess, and she used to sneak out and she would hide under the deck. And the worst part about it was that she was actually declawed. Now, we did not declaw her. I was 10 years old when I got her, and I think it was kind of my parents' requirement that the cat be declawed, and so she was already declawed when we got her. And so that makes it really difficult and dangerous for her to get outside. But she would usually just hide under the deck, and it was impossible to get her out. You kind of had to just let her work herself out.
Wow, that sounds like that would be extremely stressful.
Yes, it was.
Was she a baby? Is that why she would get stuck, or is that just a cat thing?
She wasn't, well, she didn't really get stuck. Like, we had a good sized deck. And so she would just kind of go like under there and like hang out. And then I remember when I got my dog Kia when I was first living on my own and brought the dog in the house, and she escaped, and I was like, oh my gosh, and it was raining, and she somehow caught a mouse without claws. She caught a mouse and she brought it to the door. And I was like, because that's her being like, hey, you don't need this dog, like, I'm a good cat.
I was gonna ask, I was like, what is the relation between the dog and the cat there? Like, why did you mention your dog? But I get it now. That's very interesting. Yeah. Now, tell me something. The name Princess, did she come with that name, or did you give it to her?
Oh, no. I was 10 years old when I got her. I gave her that name. Her full name was actually Princess Zelda.
Well, of course.
Yes.
I think, hopefully people who follow the Gilmore Gals pod will also follow Venice Cats.
Yes.
But just in case they don't already, I think you should tell people what your cats' names are.
Okay. So now I have 3 cats. I have Sir Paul McCartney and Lady Sif, which is a character from Thor. Sir and Lady came to us as they were litter mates. So they've known each other since they've been born. So they're very, very bonded. And then a few years later, I found a little kitten in the parking lot of my work. And I, scooped her up and was like, hey, guess what? We got another cat. And I named her Tony because after the name of the place that I used to work, which was Anthony Travel. So I called her Tony, and so her name is Tony Stark. And the 3 of them have an Instagram, and they also have a TikTok, and it's Venice_cats, if anyone is interested to see some cute cat videos and pictures.
They are very
Thanks for the shout out. Thanks for letting me do a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's interesting though, because it isn't just Sir Paul. You spell it like Pa.
Yes, yeah, Pawl. Sir Paul.
I think that's great. You're awesome. Okay, let's get back to this. What were we talking about?
Yeah, we really kind of got off on a tangent here. Okay.
So the cat's stuck under the house, and Babette comes over, and then Lorelai and Rory are sitting outside, and they're chatting, and Lorelai tries to make the case that the golf outing should count as a Friday night dinner, and she thinks she can get them out of this Friday night dinner. But to Lorelai's horror, Rory actually wants to go.
And this is going to lead us into one of the most absurd fights ever in Gilmore Girls history.
Yes.
We see that the little green monster has now fully emerged, and Lorelai just pounces on Rory for wearing her sweater without asking. And she continues going on that it's her favorite and it will get stretched out, which leads to the aforementioned awkward argument between the 2 over who has bigger boobs.
You're totally bigger.
Like, who has that kind of conversation with their teenage daughter?
So this here is an example of just one of the many of Rory being the more mature of the 2 of them, which is a theme that we'll see throughout much of the series.
Next up, it is a little bit later on, and we see Lorelai and Suki walking through town, working through Lorelai's feelings. And just a note, Suki has 2 Band-Aids on her hand this time.
Now, Suki, they're having a little chat about this ridiculous fight that, Lorelai and Rory just had. And Suki hits the nail on the head when she tells Lorelai that she's jealous because her parents like Rory more than they like her.
Lorelai is battling with the idea that she ran away from the country club life, but now Rory might actually want that life for herself.
Yeah, she says little white gloves and coming out parties, that makes some girls happy, right? Which is foreshadowing season 2, episode 6, if you recall, presenting Lorelai Gilmore, where she has her coming out party and she's wearing the little white gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, Suki sees something that totally catches her eye, leaving her or causing her to leave Lorelai in the dust as she darts into the street right in front of a bicyclist and causing him to fall.
And which is
She's so unaware. She's so unaware of it.
Oblivious. We find out that what caught her eye was actually beautiful strawberries from Taylor Dorsey's market.
So of course Jackson is going to come by, and he is absolutely mortified and furious to see her there buying fruit from someone else. And she begins to chase him down the street, apologizing profusely. And this time they almost get hit by a car. And I would also like to point out that Jackson is the one who refused to sell her the strawberries. He wouldn't even let her look at them. So I don't really think it's fair of him to be getting so upset at Suki about this.
Yeah, acting like she's cheating on him or something.
Yeah.
But I believe she does end up making the blueberry tarts after all.
She does, yes.
Not tarts, it was shortcake?
Shortcake.
Blueberry shortcake? We're at the big wedding, and there's something I have to point out because it bugs me every single time I watch it. I've never mentioned this before, but generally when I do my own rewatch and I go through the whole series, I skip season 1 altogether because there's so many things in it that bother me that I just can't handle it, and I just move on to season 2. But now that we're rewatching it, I'm enjoying it, I will say, especially since I'm doing this with you. But here's one of the things that bugs me every time. So we see a bunch of folks out on the dance floor. The camera is sort of like weaving through them, and we see everybody's faces and everything. And we see Miss Patty doing a weird looking dance, and it's super exaggerated. And the guy she's dancing with looks confused and awkward. And then if you go to 37 minutes, 10 seconds, the camera basically runs into her face, like in her face, while she's making the oddest expression I have ever seen. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch it. You will never get that face out of your head ever again. Rant over.
I think I'm gonna have to go take a screen grab and put that on our socials for people to look at.
Oh my God, yes, please do that.
Okay,
oh my God.
I'll make a note to remind myself to do that. All right. Now, at the sign-in table for the wedding, Lorelai apologizes to Rory for her outburst, while Ani's favorite song of all time is playing in the background.
Is it We Are Family?
It is We Are Family.
So, okay, side note, little known fact here. I had a list of songs that were forbidden from my wedding. This is
Ani
fair, you know.
like to have fun. Yeah, that's what the story is. Ani doesn't like fun.
Yes, I don't like fun. I would not allow the conga line at my wedding. No We Are Family. No Shout, or A Little Bit Softer Now, or whatever the hell that song is. What is that other awful one that they do at weddings?
Celebrate.
Celebrate. I hate that song. So no Celebrate. And no Chicken Dance. Nothing like that. So anyway, that was my, but it was still a really nice wedding.
The snooty pants over here. No.
Even that, it's just, you know how you've heard the same thing a million times and it's so right, and I was like, we're not doing those songs anyway.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. I just think it's cute. Lorelai also apologizes for inadvertently cutting Rory off from her grandparents for all those years, simply because separation from them was the best thing for Lorelai, but she admits that maybe it wasn't the best thing for Rory.
And we see a mother scolding her daughter for messing up her dress, her like fancy dress, commanding her to cross her legs and sit like a lady, this child, rather than, running around and playing like a kid is supposed to do.
And she makes a comment that the dress was like $500. Who spends $500 on a children's dress?
A snooty rich person. That's who.
Yes. Well, seeing that little girl and that interaction between the little girl and her mother, you can see that Lorelai is having some not very pleasant memories, and she recalls being that little girl, and Rory thanks her for not doing the same thing to her.
Yeah, I love this little, it's such a small scene, but I love this little interaction here. Rory hugs her arm, and then Lorelai gives her a little peck on the head and then smooths down her hair. It's a little gesture, but it's a very sweet motherly thing to do, something that probably wasn't scripted and, just came to her in the moment. And it's definitely something that you wouldn't imagine Emily ever doing, ever.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, This has been a very big episode, and we're going to end the episode where we started with Friday night dinner. This time, the girls bring leftover blueberry shortcake from the wedding, which Emily calls used dessert.
She's so ungrateful.
You brought us used dessert.
So Emily, okay, so this dinner, Emily simply cannot contain her gloating that Rory had a good time with Richard. And she says, it's just very interesting the way things turn out, isn't it?
And poor Lorelai, she's just like, you can tell that she doesn't want to be there. She's not very happy. And then to make matters worse, Richard, Emily, and Rory go off to look at some books, leaving Lorelai alone in the sitting room, which is just kind of putting an emphasis on the loneliness or the feeling of being left out that she's feeling as Rory is increasingly bonding with her grandparents.
Yeah. And that's just kind of how the episode ends, her just sitting there by herself.
Yeah.
Well, we've made it to the end of episode 3.
We did. This was season 1, episode 3, Kill Me Now. Be sure to tune in next time when we tackle season 1, episode 4, which I don't remember the name of off the top of my head, and I probably should have had that.
I think it's the one with the deer.
Yes, it is. It's the one with the deer. Yeah.
Okay, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and share with your friends.
If you have any questions or comments, if you feel like we left anything out or got anything wrong, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at the Gilmore Gals Pod. And we also have a Facebook page.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes.
Copper boom!